one day, Bach, with his great reputation in all of Germany, was invited to by King Frederick of the Prussian Empire, because he heard from the faraway lands of how amazing a composer Bach was. So he was like, I kind of want to see this for myself. Who is this Bach maestro? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? I would like to put that to test. I've heard him and of him from the faraway lands. So we invited him over, and Bach, as was like customary of the time, was very, all these musicians, they're always like very polite, and very respectful, and they have like these extended, like, it's just the customary thing. You can like really be annoyed by a king, but you're not going to say in his face. You're always going to, it is my honor to be graciously invited to your presence and blah 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 blah. So he was very humble about it, at least in person. So the king was like, I have heard of your skills, and I would like to see for myself how your talents at work here. Could you please demonstrate for me a fugue? And so, what is a fugue? A fugue is a three voice composition, starting with a subject, and then you have a counter subject for that subject, and then those sort of mix and match together, and then a third voice comes in and introduces subjects, and so it's like the subject enters like three times, and they keep on mixing and match. It's very complicated, and normally you write the stuff out. He improvised it on the keyboard. On like he's like a compositional genius of not just a generation but of eternity. Okay, like and has the ability to turn that into like an emotional masterpiece that makes people cry afterwards. Like it's just like math, guys. No, it's math and makes you like stirs your soul. Think about God and all that. Bach was a God guy. Okay, it was all about the divine power and beauty and blah blah blah. Okay, so right, so he demonstrated his fugue, and the Prussian king was like, wow, that is very impressive, maestro. But he had something up his sleeve. Like he wanted to mess with Bach, knowing how talented he was. So he came in prepared, and it's like, that was such a wonderful piece, maestro. I would now like to examine if you could actually make a fugue out of this musical idea that I have prepared for you. And so one of the court people went up to the king and brought him a flute, and the Prussian king proceeded to play the most obnoxious melody ever. It was like all chromatic sub dum 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 dum, and all these crunches over, right? Like it's sort of the crunchiest melody you can possibly imagine, that was not made for a fugue, right? It's like if you were had an assignment and given that melody, that was not what you wanted, right? So he played that, and with a smile on his face, the Prussian, and was like, would you please would you be able to improvise a fugue out of this? And Bach just like took notes, sat quietly there, and just thought for a moment, and then he proceeded to play. Initially, sounding what he had heard, because he had memorized that melody on the spot in his mind. Okay, like he heard it once and he heard it. Okay, he played it with one hand, dum 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 dum, and then his other hand came in and he wrote a counter subject to that, counter melody to that, and then out came an outpouring of fugal writing. It was like the fingers intertwining, the magic of the moment, and it was improvised. So Bach was just heard it once, and already the architectural juices was already flowing in his mind, and it was coming, it was coming together, and already he planned. He sort of saw the future. He was sort of like placing each note while knowing what he was gonna do next, and already planned the ending, already all that stuff. And so what he had there was a complete fugue built out of the most obnoxious melody that the king had played. So what did the king do? The king was visibly stirred and, was a little bit, whoa, this Bach guy, they weren't lying when they said that this guy was like really, prodigious in his abilities. So he wanted to test him further now. So the Prussian emperor said, "That was such an exquisite piece, maestro. I would actually like to ask you one more thing. What you have played just now was a three-voice fugue, which was lovely and gorgeous. Would you be able to write a six-voice fugue?" Back in the day, you're pretty accomplished for writing a four-voice fugue already. So, like, for the king to ask Bach to write a six-voice fugue was, I don't know, was a little bit, I don't know, sort of testing the limits of human, like, cognition and, like, talent and, possibility and impossibility, right? No one's ever written a six-voice fugue before, so for the Prussian king to ask that on the spot and ask Bach to improvise it, a little bit out there, right? What did Bach say? Bach, thought for a moment, again, nodded and just thought for a moment and said, I'll need to get back to you on that, was what he said. Say I will need to, I will need a little bit more time. So they left and parted ways, and that left the story. That was the story of Bach and the Prussian king. So what happened afterwards was that Bach came back home and slept on it and proceeded to just work out a six-voice fugue for the next, I don't know, couple of weeks or month or whatever. And then so he wrote this like giant fugal masterpiece built on the obnoxious subject written by played by the Prussian king. And he sort of make a little book out of it, sort of like the complete score of the six-voice fugue, including the original three-voice fugue that he had improvised on the spot. He like literally improvised and memorized it and wrote it back down. So and then so he shipped it, he mailed it to the king. Nobody knows if he ever saw the king ever like played, like saw it or whatever, but he was like, "Oh, your dear highness, this was the most, this fugue is based on the theme that you had most graciously offered to me when I was there in your palace," and blah blah blah. And so he sent it off to them, I'll annotate whatever, send it off to him. And now 250 years later in our time, this is a masterpiece. Like there's still people playing that fugue. It's called the musical offering is what it is. Based off based off of the obnoxious, obnoxious chromatic subject by the Prussian king. He turned that into a masterpiece. So what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that you can turn the dumbest, most obnoxious idea into a masterpiece given enough tools and time or musicality. I've said